All right. Thank you guys for being here. This is the August meeting of the After Effects user group. If you would be interested, I would like for you guys to subscribe to the Dallas After Effects user group. First of all, join the group here on Facebook, and if you have interest, I'd love for you to be involved in the Dallas After Effects user group on YouTube.
Ja, welcome girly man.
So there we go, right there. And videos going forward. All meetings going forward, but I also have, I think, a playlist here of everything from previous
Trent's greatest hits.
previous years there. So check those out and subscribe. I only have like 8 subscribers so far up in here. So tonight we're going to talk about text animators. And the first thing I want to do is just a trick that I use sometimes when I am trying to do text animatory kind of things with bitmap. So maybe somebody has some rasterized text in Photoshop, or a logo from Illustrator that has a subtitle, and I need that to move.
And okay, this is some text. Do you have some context?
Yes. So this is going to be text that we're not going to use text animators for. I will instead put a shape layer over top of it and use it as an adjustment layer. Okay, so we'll just call this text move 1, like that. And under distort, I'll grab a transform, set a keyframe here for position, and I want it to end probably right about there. So I've got my keyframe for the ending, and I know I want to have an opacity change. So I'm just hitting U to twirl down my keyframes there. And I'll scoot back. Actually, I think I need to move my shape layer down like that. I might need to make it a little bigger in just a minute. But so the text is going to just kind of move up into frame and fade in. Let's do that right there. I'm using my transform to do the position change. And then I will use opacity here on the transform to do the opacity change. And I'll come over here and right click and do easy ease like that. And if I do, I'll just select my position keyframe. I can do Shift Command K, or I can do keyframe velocity. I'm going to set that to 66. Do Shift Command K there. And 66 like that. So that's just going to ease it in a little bit more than the standard. And there you go. Okay. Now maybe that's a little long, so I just pull that back like this. And I can end that layer right there, because once it's in place, I don't need that layer anymore. It's just using that to do the transform. Now, this will work on anything else behind it. So let's demonstrate that. I'll do Command Y to put a new solid in there, and put the solid behind. I'll do like a fractal noise. You can see that it moves the fractal noise as well. So of course, if you want to do that, that's great. But anything underneath this adjustment layer is going to adjust, is going to be adjusted. Okay, so if I want this background back there, I'll have to pre-comp my text and then put all that over top without doing the collapse transformations.
Now, if there's alpha behind it, though, it should stay transparent.
Correct.
So you can pre-comp it.
Correct. Yeah, so there's the alpha back there. And I'll show you the collapse transformations thing in just a minute. But I still think that needs to come in sooner. Maybe the whole move needs to take 1 second. All right, so there's my first bit. And now all I need to do is just duplicate and scoot this guy over. Actually, let's center up my rectangle because it's just better for him to be right around that anchor point. There. Okay, so now I'm adjusting around the anchor point. Like that. Scoot over a tad. And we'll do text move 3, scoot this over. Hit UU, that twirls down my already changed properties, so I don't have to go look for it. Like that. And we'll do one more for the final word. And that's the final word. Change my width again. Okay, so now because all of these are lined up and all the keyframes are lined up, the whole text moves. But here's your trick for today. First one is if I want to switch the layer order of this, I'll select the bottom layer, shift select the top layer, cut, and paste. Okay. So now,
I need to know how to do that the other day.
Oh, I'm sorry, dude.
Working.
So now I can offset these layers like that. And if I make sure that I'm covering the layers, now I have a more or less animated text. And I could also have just come in here and adjusted the keyframes. I'll do option.
So is that an adjustment
Correct.
layer that you used?
Uh-huh. And like that. It is option and right and left on the keyboard. Like that. And if you want to nudge your, and you can do shift as well. So shift option does 10 frames like that. And if you want to do your whole layer, do page up and page down. Man, I want to get so much fun stuff done in After Effects that I try to know as many keyboard shortcuts as I can. I also have a little bit of self-righteousness and think I know so many keyboard shortcuts. So when somebody brings me a keyboard shortcut, I have to check myself and be like, okay, I don't know all the keyboard shortcuts. I don't have all the solutions. I need to be
Deep breath.
I need to be able to learn from other people. So
Sorry.
that's just a struggle I have. Yeah, getting real with you guys. So there's that right there. Now, if I want to change this, maybe I want these to scale up instead of fade up and rise vertically, then I would come in here and delete my position keyframes. I'll hit U again, and I can do scale here on this guy. scale. Sorry, my opacity's right there. Let's see. This is where it starts. This is where it starts to break down a little bit because you're adjusting inside this thing, right?
But that looks so cool.
So it could be. Let's back out there, and if I adjust the scale down like that. And I'll do keyboard shortcuts here to get to keyframe velocity. So that lines up. But what if I just copy and paste these things here? That's kind of an interesting text effect. And just for fun, we can take this just one more level here. And instead of this thing being so wide, I can squeeze it in. I'll do Option, Command, and Home, and that centers up my anchor point. So I'll go there. That's like that. And I'll duplicate this layer and just scoot it over a couple of times like that. Maybe be a little bit random with it. Trying to keep each layer behind or on top of the others. So just looks pretty good. So now there's that right there. I'm going to hit my tilde key so I can see all of this. Tilde again. So whatever window you're over, if you hit tilde, it zooms the window to fill the screen. Okay. Let's drag that guy out like that. And if I want to, maybe I can. Well, yeah, okay, I'll do that. Just do some random stuff here and just make sure all my layers, I'm going to do Option and left bracket to make sure all my layers match up to the home there. So it's a little weird that it starts over here, but it's a little bit like a house of mirrors, yeah, kind of effect. All right, any questions on that? Any thoughts from you guys? No. This is, as long as your version of After Effects has the transform effect, you can use.
Awesome.
You can use your adjustment layers and the transform effect to get that kind of thing happen.
That's cool.
Okay.
Yeah, I never thought about using a shape layer as a adjustment layer, and I never thought about using a transform on it.
That was a necessity one time, and I had a website that had a bunch of boxes, so it would be like box, box, box in a grid, and then each box had like a name or a piece of information underneath it, and it wanted all those. They were already laid out on still, like we had shot a still just did a screen capture of the web page.
Gotcha.
So everything was all laid out. I didn't have the ability to adjust. I wanted to get it done quickly to have each of those pieces move into, just kind of slide up into place. And so I just created the transform
Nice.
move and could just drop that over each of those little boxes and then go.
That's cool.
All right, so there's your first bit of Text Animators,
Excellent.
just for fun. Now, if you're going to lay that over something, the idea would be that you need to put the adjustment layers on the text and then move the text into another composition to put, say, fractal noise on there, like so. And now if I put the text animator on there, everything's fine. If I do transform, collapse transformations here, then it will affect what's underneath. But otherwise, leaving that off will give me the desired result. And I think I know what's up. I think I know why that's doing what it's doing, is because it is transforming on itself all the way across here and then just kind of tapering off its transforms. So if I come over here with a few of those and put them lower in the stack, like that, maybe take a couple of these and put them higher in the stack, then it'll be a little more kind of uniform in what it's trying to do. Does that make sense? All right, more text animators. All right, this is extra text. So we're gonna just start off with the simple rise up and fade in. Okay, and this is how I always set up my text animators. Now I'm gonna hold Command, and actually no, first thing I'm gonna do is do animate and set my position like that. And I get a range selector. I'll hold Command and click on my range selector twirl down, because that gives me all of the available options here, instead of me having to twirl down that, then that, then that. If I just click with my Command key, all of them open up. Okay. So the first thing I do is set my offset all the way to -100 and get myself over to here, set a keyframe for +100. The idea behind this is that whatever is at 100% on my offset, I want that to be the final position, or the natural position. Okay, so whatever the text looks like, however it's laid out when I generate it, lay it out, all that, that's my final position. That's the original. And anything over here at -100, that's going to be where the text is coming from. Okay, this is starting position, moving to translating itself into the original position. And the way that works is I have to use this ramp up on the shape, and I'll do an ease on it. The ease low is when it gets to this 100 here, that's the ease low. And it's basically like putting an easy ease on it. And then I have this position down here that's inside my text animator. So anything that's in here underneath this text animator, that is what I'm going to use to adjust my text. And really, just a blanket, when you're starting out with Text Animators, you really only need 2 keyframes. If you're doing an entrance of a text, you just need -100 and 100. And we'll talk about the text going out in just a minute. You don't need to set a bunch of keyframes for anything else. You don't need to set position keyframes because the ramp takes care of it. So keep that in mind. And I'll just say down here on the y-axis is where I'm going to start my text. And it's just going to translate itself on through like that to 100%. Now you can see that it's characters. We'll do words. Okay, so my words are adjusting. And if I want it to dissolve in, just give it opacity, set the opacity to 0. Okay, so again, this is my natural text position. This 100% over here is when I created the text, that's what it's going to look like eventually. That's what, if I have no text animator parameters applied to it. When I work back this way, this is what it will look like with 100% of the text animator functionality applied to it. Okay? And then it interpolates itself. So if I wanted to, I'll put my opacity back up to 100. If I wanted to rotate, I just come back here, tell it how much I want to rotate. And if I don't want just letters up there, so I can tell it here under more options, instead of grouping by character, I can group by word, like that. So now it's going to rotate the words. And we'll fade it back in. Maybe I don't like that. Maybe I want it to go 45 from 45 positive. Yeah, that's better. And the length of the move is adjusted here. I want it to take longer to come in, or a shorter time. Okay. Any questions here?
You're totally bypassing the start and the end. I always have started with the start. I set it up and then I go put the ramp up and then I adjust my offset. So you're saying I can bypass a whole step there.
Yeah. Now,
nothing's lost there?
Nothing's lost. If you want something special to happen with start and end, that's great. But you don't have to use start and end. So
you can just keep stacking your stuff below that. And then
the start and end, if I turn back on my bounding boxes, the start and end, you can see is this little arrow with the line on it that shows you where you are with that. Now, if I want my text, let's say I'm going to type some text on here. I'll duplicate this, Command D, hold Shift, move it down in line, and I'll double click and say this is typed text, and then I'll spell it correctly. So what I'll do here, I'm just going to delete that text animator and build it from scratch. We'll say opacity, command, and twirl, and I'll get everything. Go offset, -100, 100, come back here and ramp up characters because it'll type itself on, and opacity will be 0. It'll start at 0. Now I only want one character at a time basically, so I'll do 1 here. Okay, see how they pop on, pop, 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 pop. And it's really not even a pop, it's just like a 1 frame fade.
So what is the 1 doing?
The 1, this is the width of my text. Okay, so 100%
So if you play it like that,
is the end, and it's just gonna fade
That-
on.
That shows the ramp up, doesn't it?
So the ramp is over 100% of the text. And then I can fine tune it here
I see.
and squeeze it back over here. Actually, if I do 0, what does that do? This is a little more of a typing. Like that. Okay. Same thing. But you'll see here that when I get to 0 on my offset, that's when the text is fully typed in. So it starts at -100, and then 0 will be fully typed in because of the start being at 100%. If I go back and do them both at 0, then the text will start typing in at 0 and go to positive 100. All right. And you can actually get a look at what the motion is if you just put in a bunch of text like this, and I'm just going to do a bunch of these little dots, Option or Alt 8. Okay, so there's ramp up and square. Actually does a all the way, so it starts full, blanks out, so it's doing that 0% opacity, and then they're coming back in.
Why is there one dot that is faded?
Because of this here. Now if I crank this back, it's not doing anything. If I put it 50-50, like that, it should do something in the middle. Or maybe we'll do 48 and 52. Okay. All right. So just to get a look at what the other bits are, if I do subtract here, you'll see that it starts out, draws everything in, and then draws everything out. So it's basically like there's a square that's over this, and you're just moving the box across. Okay. Now if I do triangle, let's see how that looks. A little Cylon action.
Nice.
That's kind of nice.
Nice sound effect.
And then around. So it's a little more, and if I do, you can get a little better look at it. If I do position here. So that's round. And let's see what happens if I do 48 and 52. Kind of looks like a bouncy ball there. But it's not. It's not. Don't worry. But that's round. Let's scoot that out a little bit and see what it's doing.
Nice.
That's kind of fun.
Juggler.
Yeah. Pew, 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 pew. 25. And where does it start? At minus 25. So we can set a keyframe there. It's pretty fun. I'll jump out of this, but this just gives me the idea that if I want to have a ball pop up into frame, I can just like that. Let's see what smooth does. I think smooth is going to loft it. Okay, so it does, this one looks less like gravity and more like it's on a string. Okay, enough of that. Let's go back and do.
Why is it just because it decelerates too fast?
It is. We'll take a look at the curve here. So this is more like a sine wave than round starts at zero. Starts at 100% velocity and then ramps down as it gets to the apex and then goes back to 100% velocity. This starts at 0 and ramps itself up and then ramps itself back down.
Oh, so at the top and bottom, at the top of the peak
Yeah.
and the bottom of the peak, it's slowing down.
Yeah, so it's always a curve, right?
Oh no.
There's round. So round starts at 100% velocity headed up, and then it slows down gradually. It goes back down.
Is that the one that looks most like gravity?
Yes. That's, and then there's triangle. Pretty self-explanatory. There's ramp down, ramp up, and square. All right.
Now, is there a little bit of a curve with the square? Because it seems like it should be either up or down if it's square.
Yeah, it should. I don't know.
It looked like there's some intermediate steps, possibly.
Well, like maybe there's a little bit of a gradient
Yeah.
on there. Just suffice it to say that it is squared off.
So there's a midpoint apparently. So it's either with square it's max, 0, min.
Yeah.
Well, no, because that showed.
So there's, you can
there's-
see the square shape of it.
Huh.
If we squeeze this back here, it's a little more square.
And there's some kind of a curve to it. It's not.
Yeah, it's not on
it's
off.
Not perfect.
Yeah, it's not on off, but it is.
It's mostly.
You can see the shape there. And there's triangle again. This is with add. I had subtract on earlier, and that just flops it. And then there's round. You can see that hard corner right there, and smooth. So that's kind of fun. While I'm thinking about it here, I wonder if I put a bunch of these. Let's copy that and paste a couple times. I'm going to cinch this back in. Well, I'm going to do this again in a little bit for another effect here, but see how that is kind of moving across like it's a ditch in the ground or something, or like if you had a ball on a blanket and you're going back and forth with it. So what if I duplicate that and just do one of these as a ball. Let's see.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And get both sets of cue. Actually, let's do an expression here. Now, oh, that's kind of fun. And if I, let's see, if I take, I think I can pick with the mode to the mode. Hit tilde again, or the accent button. Mode to mode.
Pardon me for a second.
And position to position. And shape to shape. Does that work? It has a key. It has an expression. It's weird. Maybe not. Alright, so let's just adjust this guy. And then we can change the shape. I'll go ahead and put a keyframe here so I can actually see it. And adjust the shape here to triangle. And adjust the shape here to triangle. Let's see what that does. Yeah. So as long as the shapes match, that works out. And one more little bit here. So I'm going to set my do my offset to have the corner there. That's at, let's do -90. And then we'll go here and we'll do 85. And that's okay like that. Now, if I just do a loop out, can let this guy just run and run and run.
Nice.
Change this to smooth. And change this to smooth. There we go. So there's a fun little thing for you. And now I'm going to get rid of that guy, come back here and just take a look at what happens when I mess with the ease high and ease low. So I'm on smooth now. If I do ease high and ease low to 100. So that's kind of weird. It looks like it's barely moving dots, but I think it's like a fan, like a ceiling fan. If you blink your eyes at it, or if your shutter's off, that it looks like it's moving slow. I think that's what's going on.
Yeah. You're like getting pieces of the motion.
Right.
Small
Turn it
frames
on.
of the motion.
If we stretch that out, there you can see it a little better. Let's go the other direction. Hey, how about that guy? not seen that shape before.
It's like the old Grinch cartoon.
Mhm.
He smiles with the mischievous smile.
You guys, give me a minute. I'm going to make some Batman symbols.
There you go.
Yeah, so that's okay. Let's stretch that all the way back out. See what happens if we squeeze it in. There we go. Okay, and let's do round. See what that does. And we'll do triangle. Let's ease the triangle. Let's see what that looks like. So maybe it's just a little tighter and round and smooth. One more thing here. Let's set these to 0 and then start adjusting. Do like that. There. We kind of have a little bit of the. We've gotten ourselves back to smooth. There. Which is kind of interesting. So, all right, that's just a little kind of look into what you're getting when you try one of those modes, right? What else? Let's do one more of these text animators real quick. We'll do 2B here. And we'll just do something fun here. Say in a world. Because this is our movie trailer text.
In the world.
Exactly. And we're going to have it
as Ratchet and Clank would say, in another world.
in another world. We're going to have this move past the camera. So let's put in a camera here. We can do 3D space. And in order to do that, I need to do animate here per character 3D. And we will do minus 100. Actually, I think I have some stuff already set up, so I'm going to delete those guys like that. Minus 100 and 100. This is when we'll do our exit. So we'll have the text enter, and then we'll have the text exit. And in order to have it enter, I'm going to have it go past the camera on the Z axis. So we'll do ramp up, and E is low as there. We'll do like that. But maybe that's a, I go through one of these holes here, like that. So, ooh, nope, I did it wrong. I set up my anchor point. I don't want any of those transforms. So let's twirl up, and we'll just do text like that. And when I have my animator set up, I come down to add. I don't want to go up to animate anymore because that'll give me another text animator. Now I have my per character 3D, then I do position. And this is when I go to minus. And there we go, like that. Move it a little bit so I'm this little crotch right here. Like that. All right, so here we go. In a world. All right. Then, because I have my text animator all set up, I can just duplicate it like that. Do a ramp down, move my keyframes over. Okay. Because it's ramped down, it's going to go the opposite. It's going to, instead of starting behind the camera and each letter moving, or each word moving in, it's going to start in front of the camera and each word is going to move back past the camera. But I don't want to do that. I want to have it go out into the distance. So I'll do 3,000 like that, and it'll go at maybe 6. So it zooms away from there, and I'll add an opacity. In a world. And I think, let's see, there. Like that. And I'll do one more thing. And that's just going to be, should we do an expression or should I do keyframes? You tell me.
Expression.
Expression. All right. So
Trying
I'll
to do the teacher's pet.
I'll twirl down position here by hitting P. Option click to make an expression. And I'll say position 1, or let's just do Z1 equals probably minus 200, and Z2 will be 200, and then we're going to do a Z equals linear like this, and I can hit here and get my parentheses already. And what I'm going to be doing is looking at, I'm doing a range mapper here, okay, a range mapper. So I'm going to use time as my my measure. All right. So I'm going to look at the endpoint of this layer, which is here, where it is in time, the out point of the layer, where it is in time, and then I'm going to range map my Z position to each of the starting time, the endpoint time and the out point time. Okay? So I'll look at time like that. And my first value is what I want, where I want my range to start. And that's the endpoint. And then where I want it to end, where I want my range to end, is the out point. And then I'll do Z1, Z2. Okay? Now, I have 3 dimensions that I need. So I'll just do value plus, and then I'll set up an array that's just 0, 0, and then Z. So I'm pulling my value, my numbers that are already here, and I'm adding nothing to the X, nothing to the Y, and then adding this mapped range to the Z. Okay? And if we look at there.
Trent,
Hey, man.
could we get some air? Thanks. Thanks.
Okay. So just to make it a little more user-friendly, I can also set up a slider control for myself. This could be minus S. And then S, I don't have my slider yet. So what I'll do is I'll add a slider, expression control slider. Like that. And set this to 400. And then just pick whip here to the slider. Like that. I can call this move range. So now if I move my slider like this, you can see the range changes here. Set my time work area out point. I'll just do a random preview. And you see the reason I did that is so there's always that kinetic feel. It doesn't come in and sit. It's always moving.
The in point and the out point that it's referencing, is that of the layer or your
It's the layer here. So if
so it
I,
doesn't matter your work area, you know.
right. So in a world, what could the next one be?
Where people don't breathe air.
Where people
Are green. Literally green.
are green.
People are green.
Okay, so let's just see what our overlap is here. Like that. Because each of these is reading its own endpoint and outpoint, then it doesn't matter where I put the layer, it'll always do that range between there. Between the in and the out.
Nice.
So you said the reason I did that was so it would keep moving, but what was the that?
Okay, it's put this expression on and adjust the Z position.
So that all of those lines of code are keeping it moving?
Yes. I could have just set position keyframe, but in order to make this more dynamic, I mean, we can go all the way dynamic with this and just jump in here.
Dynamic means
Sorry.
that floating feeling, or what's dynamic mean?
Dynamic means if I change the width of this,
Oh, I got you.
then something, the animation changes without me having to use keyframes.
I see.
Okay, so I could come in here and my move takes, let's see, what is that, 127? So instead of this set of keyframes here, I can say linear. I'll pull my time. I'll look at my endpoint like that, and then I'll do endpoint plus like 1.25. So I'm reading the time at the endpoint, and then the endpoint plus a second and a quarter. All right, and I'm going to give it minus 100 and 100. So I can actually delete these keyframes, and it still does the move because it's reading the endpoint and a second and a quarter out from the endpoint right there. I've ranged. Do I need to keep explaining it, or you got it? Yeah, anybody?
Well, 1 1/4 now the dynamic is that no matter how long you make it, it's still going to be 1 1/4.
Correct.
So before it was stretching out with the length of your clip, right?
Well, before, if I moved my keyframes,
Oh.
it would change when the words came in from the camera, from behind the camera.
I see.
So here's the example. Let's get the keyframes back. Like that. Okay, so I have my expression in there. If I turn my expression off and I change my keyframes like that, that changes the amount of time it takes for it to come in, for the words to move in with that text animator. If I turn the expression back on, it always starts where the end point is of my layer, and it always resolves at the endpoint plus 1.25. Okay. Now,
That keyframe isn't doing anything.
correct. I can delete the keyframes. Now, if I copy this expression only and I apply it here, like that, I can get rid of my keyframes, and instead of my endpoint, I need to read my out point minus 1.25. And this would just be out point. And if I turn both of these guys on, you can see that's where everything happens between those. So if I change my out point here, I change when the move happens. And I can even have it move on itself, so that's coming in and it's also going out at the same time because they're overlapping.
Yeah, nice.
Like that. But now, because I have that built, I can duplicate it and just change the text. World of great big
Talking cucumbers.
Jello cucumbers. In a world
of great big Jello cucumbers.
All right, does that make sense?
Yep. About as much sense as Jello cucumbers do make.
Yep. Totally fair. Then, if I want to change anything, add anything to my text animators, because I already have the motion set up, already have the ranges set up with my expressions, I can even maybe add a rotation. Say that. Okay. Good.
It's wonderful.
We're following? We're good? And then the last bit would be to go here, say animation, save animation preset, and call this cinematic excellence. Like that. And if I
Hardy har.
delete, I can come here and type in, this is movie text. Like that. And look in effects and presets, cinematic excellence, double click. Actually gave me in a world, which is kind of cool, but let's see if we can get it set up where it doesn't do that. I think maybe
So it replaced your text?
it did. Maybe if let's go back to here and do the text animators instead. We'll just grab those two right there. Save animation preset, cinematic excellence. We'll just override it. Like so. And this is movie text. Like that. Effects and presets. Double click. Okay, so now wherever I have my my time marker, time indicator, if I have keyframes in my preset, that's where it'll put the keyframes. But I don't have any keyframes. It only does them based on the in and out point of my layer. Like that. Now it changed this more options here, the anchor point grouping. It did it based on character instead of word.
Is that because you didn't copy that far?
Correct. Correct. So we'll come back over here, text animator, and more options. Animation.
Add
Save.
to that the overall layer position that you did with the, could that be saved in the same preset, or is that?
So I can do like put position in here. Like I'll do Shift P. So there's position.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. Cool.
Save animation preset. Cinematic excellence. Place. Okay. Now it has reloaded. All I have to do is double click. Let's see where our error came in. Oh, I don't have the move range on there. So let's do it again. See if we can get it. I have an effect called move range. More options, animator 1, animator 2, move range, position. Same animation preset, cinematic excellence. It's going to get worn out. And I'm just going to delete all this stuff like that. And there, like that. So I got move range the effect in there. So now I can change how big my move is. Frame preview. Better. Just like bam, like that.
Cool.
Nice. Cool. All right. Any other questions? Thoughts about this?
No.
No. All right. We're going to move to one of my favorite uses of text animators, and that is the 3D ribbon. So I'll go back to character here. No, do I need to change? Maybe I'll make this Arial bold. And do a bit of text here. I'm just going to do a bunch of these dots. It's option 8. Like that. And then I'm going to squeeze them in. This needs to go to about 350 or 400. Okay, so 270. Like that. And then, maybe I put too many? No, we'll see. So then I'm going to put a mask on here. My pen tool. Adjust this a little bit so we're reasonably rounded. I want it to be like me. I want it to be well rounded. Thanks for the laugh there, Tim. You were the only one.
We were laughing on the inside.
Laughing on the inside. Jeremy wasn't. All right. So I've got that mask there, and really, it's going to be okay because I need to actually turn my renderer back to classic renderer here, I think. The mask is not a closed mask, so it's not giving me the add subtract modes. But what it does allow me to do is hook my text up to this path, mask path. All right? So I can be aligned to the path or not. And part of this is actually adjusting my superscript here, my anchor point. Let's see, before we do that, let's look at the actual, there are more options. Okay, so I'm changing more options to line that anchor point up here, and then I'm going to change the superscript. Let's see if that they're both kind of lined up together. -40 is usually about where that goes. And just for fun, I'm going to make sure this point here is good. Okay. Now I can animate my path, first margin and last margin. Like that. Now you're saying to yourself, I could probably do that with shape layer and trim paths, right?
I was just saying that to
You
yourself.
were just saying that to yourself. I knew it. I knew it. But with shape layers, I can adjust the scale of this and do a taper.
See that trim pass.
Yeah. Just yet. And
Looks like a slippery snake.
yeah, it does. Let's see, make sure I'm selected here. What happened? Let's get back to scale down to 0. squeeze it a little bit tighter. And I can just copy and paste a couple times like that. So now we can start adjusting our easing here and get different looks. We can also adjust, we're getting to start and end here. So I can adjust my start and end and get different tapering. Like this. Okay, and this animator can be duplicated and turned into a ramp down. And now I have a taper on either end.
The only thing you had to change was the ramp down.
Well, I did have to move my start and end values just because I didn't want the taper to be up here. I want it to be back here. So if I do that, then I put the taper way up there. But I mean, of course, I'm changing the length of my line.
It's very Disney. Reminds me of some
Yeah.
Disney drawing.
Yeah. Now, to make it a little bit more Disney,
No, please.
a little more Disney.
Look, I'm sorry to say this, but I find Disney's character animation style to be the ugliest in the world.
All right, so this is just Trent's character animation style. How about that?
I just don't like how they draw their characters.
Let's just delete some of these. So we can, I'm gonna have the tapers in there at the same time like that. All right. What I can do now is make another animator. I'll just duplicate that right there. And instead of ramp up or ramp down, I'm going to do smooth. So now I have something in the middle there, right? If I don't scale it all the way down, like that, and I can move it through here, like that. I can even change the names here of these. Start taper, end taper, and let's just do squeeze 1 like that, and duplicate, squeeze 2, and I can change where this guy lives. I can even do my offset like so. Go ahead and do some keyframes so it's moving like that. And there. So now I have something that looks reasonably hand animated.
Very cool.
Put a little bit of a motion blur on it. If that motion blurs really do anything, except making it take longer to render.
That's great. So I'm saving a question.
All right.
Is it time?
Yes.
Is there any way to turn that to where it goes off into 3D space?
like that. Put in a camera. That one.
Very good.
And even like move it toward the camera. And a wide angle maybe? Would it be wide angle or wow. Yeah, maybe it's
Wonder if there's a way you can make that look like it's flaming.
that. There probably is. I'm gonna leave that up to you to make something look like it's flaming. All right, so
That
the
will
next part of this is I need to potentially, let's see, wonder if I can turn it on its side. So let's do a rotation.
I was gonna say that might look a little bit like something from Lord of the Rings.
It might.
Oh, and I officially authorize the execution and extermination of all anti-Jackson heretics.
What?
You heard me.
So I'm gonna do maybe 90 degrees there. All right, so that's turning sideways. So this is kind of a 2D ribbon in 3D space.
Very cool.
Okay, now the idea here potentially is let's put in a light and see if we can light this thing up, get some shading on it. And if I were to put another letter back here, let's just do an A, 3D space, and let's be bigger. See what happens when we move in space here. Come on, do it for me. All right, so now I have this thing sitting in 3D space. Like so. With actual depth. I don't know if I can get the shadows to all work. Let's see. Cast shadows here on. Getting exciting. Oh, it's gonna, yeah, I don't want to do that. This guy is, there's like 1,000 of these little dots and is trying to cast shadows on all kind of different things. So we're not gonna do that. But I will do a RAM preview here. So you can see it move off in front of the A and then around and back through like that. That's pretty wicked.
I like it.
Yeah.
It's a ribbon.
All right. So that's kind of fun. Yeah. Now we're going to move to something super fun. All right. This is going to be 3D text. I'll set my kerning
Jumbled the text.
back like that, and I think we'll do Bebas again. And we're gonna do, I'll put a camera in. We're gonna do some 3D on this animation. So I'll enable per character 3D. And then I will add a position. We're gonna do a ramp up. And we're gonna have the text do something interesting. So maybe I'll change my anchor to appear in the middle. You guys can see that moving. And I'll have the text kind of rotate and flip toward the camera to start with, maybe. So I've got to ramp up. I'm going to move. Let's see, I've got my offset 100% here, like that, and negative, away from the camera, and I'm going to add a rotation on the X axis, like that. We'll keep it at characters. So we'll do that, and then maybe let's have them move kind of up and at the camera. Like that. You can't really see a ton of 3D on there currently, but guess what?
What?
I'm going to check my composition settings, make sure I'm on the Cinema 4D renderer. Take this down there for right now. Hit OK. And under geometry, I can extrude like that. If I put a light in here, you can see that my text has a 3D shape. Do 2 lights, put 1 down to the side a little bit so we can see the depth. Now, see that animation there, right? Not only that, I can change, color my text, and we're going to put on a bevel. Maybe, nope, not 10. Whew. 4. And do that.
Where did you change the bevel to?
Bevel color to here on the stroke. And I can go change my side color Actually, what I did is I changed it inside my animator, and I don't want to do that. So I'll get rid of that, and then just add a side color here under a new animator. Like that. So I have 3 colors, and it's animated with my text animators. Okay. Maybe I don't like that it comes from the bottom. Maybe I want it to come from just way off in the distance. So I can do that. Or maybe I want it to come from behind the camera.
Now I think you're getting into some movie magic.
Movie magic. Okay, so the big difference here is that I need to change where this light lives.
It's cool with the light. The pink doesn't show up till the light hits it. So you just change that?
Yeah, I moved the light from to behind the camera.
Fast.
All right.
That renders surprisingly fast.
Yes, it is very fast. Okay. Now let's change where the camera is. We're just going to do a little bit of a rotation here. Like this. Go ahead and push it a bit so we can see some stuff. Okay, got anchor point as well. Like that. And I don't think my text needs to move quite as far now. So we'll push this back in.
Do you think we'll be able to do this 3D thing, this 3D text thing in CS5?
No.
Okay.
That. Okay, so it has been rendering fairly smoothly, but I'm about to change that. I'm going to go to the material settings here, and we're going to turn on shadows. Let's see if it'll do shadows on itself. It might not matter currently. I'm going to do reflection like that, so it'll see itself in the reflection. And we're just going to make a new pre-comp here. Call it environment. Make it, let's just do 3000 by 1000. Put a new solid in there. Do fractal noise. And who knows what it should be. Just do that for right now. And I'm going to drop it into this Text Animators 3D and call it under layer, an environment layer. You can see here, I'll make it full res. You can see this stuff going on. And if I rotate this environment layer, you can see that there's a little bit of rotation around like that. And I can even come in here and just change what this guy looks like.
Or animate it too, right?
Say it again?
You could probably animate it too, right?
Correct.
Does motion blur work with this? No,
It might, but if it doesn't, we can fudge it.
Let's see. I saw some of those letters on the sides.
Yeah, and the reflections.
It's a good reflection.
So the only reflective surface is the side? Or is it the front too?
The front is also reflective.
So if your camera's here and you put some dots out here,
Mhm.
would they start showing up on that surface? Like in the stars?
Yes. You want to see. There's shadow on there, and then I can tell it to appear in reflections. Okay, so it's on. Maybe it's just a matter of.
that might not be a shadow. That might be a reflection.
Yeah, it might be that the dots have a
Underside of the dots might be better.
underside. So let's add back color. Make it white. They are appearing in the reflections.
It's not in the front.
Maybe we need to take these dots and rotate them. No, I wonder what's going on. I don't know. Great question.
YouTube it.
Good to see
Could
After
that-
Effects. Good to see After Effects fail.
So could
I
that be
wonder-
the shadow though? That it's
It
got?
kind of well, it looks like the shadow, but
So maybe it's just we're not
Because
quite
the
at the right
light, the
angle.
light is on this side of the dots. So maybe that's why it's causing the shadow.
So maybe if you rotated the camera around a little bit, you could.
We'll pull them into Z space on the other side of the light.
Yeah.
That's nice with the shadow too.
Yeah.
Go After Effects.
And it doesn't seem like that long ago that you never thought that they'd ever have this natively in After Effects.
oh, guys, I know what's going on. So the back of the dot is getting a shadow.
Yeah, because the light's on this.
Uh huh. So if I maybe go material, accept lights off.
There you go.
Ah,
light source behind the 3D text.
All right, so
Have
the
they made a lot
idea.
of improvements to the extruded text and everything? I mean, I've tried it a couple of times when it very first came out, and
When you say extruded text, do you mean with the ray tracing, or do you mean with Cinema 4D? Because extruded text with ray tracing is terrible, has always been terrible, and it will never get any better. But with Cinema 4D, it's not lightning
It's a
fast,
different
but
renderer.
it's a different renderer that really
It's
takes care of a lot of
Symphony
stuff.
engine.
so people, I mean, at the end of the day, people still don't natively go into After Effects and make 3D text. They probably would use Cinema 4D Lite.
No, that's what it's using actually a Cinema 4D renderer in After Effects.
Okay. Yeah, because ray tracing, I had a terrible time with ray tracing, but I'm not a 3D guy. I've never really been a huge-
That's because ray tracing actually has to like simulate the photons hitting the surface. And so it has to do it like a million times. So there's a lot of calculation going on.
Okay, so the idea here, if I want to get motion blur, is that I would pre-comp this, do motion blur, but change my renderer to classic 3D. And then I can time CC force motion blur.
Oh, you can fake it.
Oh, it doesn't work with the Cinema 4D engine?
Mm-mm.
What if you pre-comp?
But it's not, that's what I've done.
Oh, okay. But even the pre-comp, it won't analyze the pixel data to.
No, that's what CC force motion blur does. It analyzes the pixel
Do you
data.
have a favorite shutter angle that you like to go with on motion blur? On the force motion blur. It just never looks quite.
Well, no, it's not, because it's not.
Yeah, it's just
force motion
reproducible.
blur is only math.
Yeah.
It's not like it's analyzing frame by frame pixels, like what was where and that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
But
it's
what
like
was
tracking.
where and where's it going?
It's tracking the pixels.
Yeah.
Or, I don't know, maybe samples. I mean, what is, I don't quite understand how the math and motion blur.
I think the native, if you're in just classic 3D After Effects, it actually analyzes 3D space for your motion blur. If you are using Real Smart Motion Blur, which is a couple $100 program, I think, it does a really nice job. CC Force Motion Blur is good if you're just, you just need to put a little bit of motion blur fuzz on there and you don't have a ton of stuff going on. I think you might see at some point here that the motion blur on the T gets a little weird. I don't know where it was.
The last two?
That middle one right there. I don't know. It got itself weird. I think at some point, just it looks like it's tearing the image.
Yeah, if you have too big of a jump, it's not going to be able to track the pixels correctly.
Right. Cool. And then there's another one that is pixel motion blur. Is it? Time. Yeah, pixel motion blur. And this one can do a little bit different stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And it's rendering a lot faster. Still looks okay, but it's rendering a lot faster. It's not going to be perfect. I don't even know if like Cinema 4D, native Cinema 4D motion blur is going to be perfect because it's all just analyzing pixel data instead of an actual lens. But for what you're getting here, that's pretty good.
Well, I would assume the Cinema 4D, because it has all the 3D data, it can, just like the After Effects motion blur, I think it's sampling in between frames.
But it's
Yes.
never going to be an actual lens.
Oh yeah. It's still
Yeah, it's still
yeah,
in a
you're
computer.
right. It's still kind of tracking between pixels,
Yeah.
but it gives you those in between frames depending on your settings. How many
Right.
of those sampled frames in between? You know.
So another thing maybe that is potentially interesting is you can, let's see, you could put on a camera blur here. So let's go in and change the camera location one more time and see if we can get how we work out depth on this. This. Okay. So I don't think I can do depth of field. Let's see. Field, aperture.
You do one pixel. Apertures measured in pixels.
For After Effects it is. So that's not working
in classic 3D.
in Cinema 4D.
Were you wanting like
Okay, so let's see. Blending modes don't work. Track mats, layer styles, masks on effects. And for layers, preserve transparency, light transmission, transparency, refraction,
Say depth of field.
motion blur,
There it is.
depth of field. Okay. So we have to do a little bit of a fudge on that.
Track map.
figure
Left.
grayscale?
Let's try a grayscale. Okay. So what we'll do is duplicate this and call it depth and see how we can make this grayscale. So maybe let's try this at 50% gray and this at 50% gray. Probably can just take the color off of there and the reflections. And there, like that. And let's see, what else do we need to do? How do we get that to happen?
You want to put the light source fixed to the camera, right? With a
Yeah,
pretty
yeah,
sharp
yeah.
fall off.
Yeah, let's try that. So we'll delete here and copy the camera position, paste like that. And I don't want any specularity. But I do want diffuse. Ambient. What happens when I turn the light?
Why do you need to make it a directional light? Or parallel?
Spot. Parallel light.
Parallel, yeah. Because all the light back, the photons need to be going in the same direction.
Okay, yep.
And it needs to be aimed at the object.
So,
Or
point of
actually it needs to be
interest.
in, what is it, perpendicular to the camera view.
so if I do that, that should do it, right?
Let's
Let's
turn off the
attach
camera
it.
for a second and take a look. See if it's-
Maybe attach it to the camera. So there's the camera, there's the light.
You're right, I think it needs a point at the same, at the point of interest.
Should be able to swing it around from the top, right? So a fixed point. We're just looking at.
Okay. And keep working on this and see if we can get it. Radius. Smooth. No, let's see. There we go. Okay, so now we need the text to be all white, I think. I don't like that the bevel
Yeah, I don't think there's any,
color.
I think that's just a limitation of what we're trying to do. Because it's catching more light because it's at the right angle compared to the rays or whatever.
And I wonder. See if there's anything else here you can mess with.
Shadows are completely turned off.
To my knowledge, they are off, except shadows on, off, ambient, diffuse.
I think your text is stuck.
Okay,
right there.
here we go.
Yeah, there. Yeah.
Getting close. And if I do 100% diffuse, is that going to do it? I want it a little bit tighter gradient on it. All right. So we're not there. We're not fully there, but we can. I think we can use this. Right?
What if you applied a blur to it, to that layer?
I don't
like the-
think I can do a blur. We'll see.
You have to pre-comp it.
Yep. So now what we do is take the depth, pre-comp it, depth, set, and make this classic 3D, okay. Like that. And I'm going to use it as its own alpha matte. try vertical blur. All right, so got that. Let's put depth set in there. I'll take this and say blur, camera lens blur. And we want it to look at that. We'll increase blur here. And we can change the focal distance. Now, is it perfect? Heck no, not perfect. Not
You
3D.
give us the chance to say that's pretty impressive.
That it is.
It is very stylized. How about that? Interestingly stylized.
All you gotta do is trick the eye for a couple of frames.
Yeah.
Very visually appealing.
Well, you could still run a curves adjustment on the grayscale if you
Yeah, maybe so.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Give it more range. Maybe.
Yeah, so that. Back here. Yeah. I don't know, maybe this. Maybe that edge needs to be blurred a tiny bit. All right, so interesting, right? Last thing, we only have just a couple minutes, and I'm going to delete the environment. No, I'll leave it back. I'm going to set the text. Let's see if I can just get a edge. So here, do it's not gonna do it. Man, it's gonna be for me. So I think I can do a text that just has the outline, but maybe that is just by using a font as the outline. Does that make sense? All right. I think I've blown my wad on this. I think you guys were very patient with me. You did a great job listening,
Great stuff.
not interrupting very
Good
often.
stuff.
And I think if you can get a little bit of a handle on Text Animators, hopefully you were able to this evening get a little better handle on Text Animators. Play around with Text Animators, try and recreate some of the stuff we did tonight. Ask me questions, please.
This last example won't be much help to me because
No, it
of my
won't.
limitation.
That's why I did the first example, so you
Good.
can see that. But once you once you start getting the 2D with the text animators, all you have to do is turn on the Cinema 4D renderer and extrude that sucker, and bam, you have amazing 3D text. Cool.
Very nice.
All right. Well, thank you guys very much.
Right.
Please,
Well, a little
please
later.
join up on the Facebook group, and we will look forward to seeing you next time.